Ableism, the idea that able-bodied people are superior to those with disabilities.
Because again, not malicious, but because there's an ignorance, because somebody wasn't thinking.
Part of the human condition, part of the human experience is this intimate relationship to what we call disability.
Let's dive into ableism to learn the truth of what it means to be a person with disabilities. To those who have a disability, simply live a life with more roadblocks in the way, or does the effects of a disability on every aspect of daily life build up to a sense of overwhelming odds and psychological debilitations?
Ableism is the assumption that being able-bodied is better than being disabled. And I think that that assumption is really problematic and dangerous.
I am capable and likely to have this sort of stuff happen to me, but it gets trying at times because it's like you, I'm trying to think of the right words for it. You eventually feel like they don't see you as a person, they more see you as a chore, like a person who needs special attention. And while you understand oh yeah, I do need special attention, it could get trying because you don't feel the same as everyone else. You feel like you need extra focus and extra focus, I guess, and you don't get to it's like you're always on baby wheels, the training wheels, and you're never going to get taken off because they don't trust you enough to do it.
Elizabeth Barnes, professor of philosophy, argues that in the vast majority of cases, disabilities are different ways of being in the world. It is as we turn to these kinds of philosophies, it then allows for society and people to create a web of ideas in order to better understand and protect the rights of those with disabilities. Statistics have shown there is a 5% of working Americans who experience a short-term disability due to illness, injury, or pregnancy, on average every year. One of these overarching concepts which communicates the idea of disability as a temporary or natural part of life is known as transability.
The concept of transability is a way to articulate the fact that no one is permanently able-bodied. Even if someone is born with certain congenital impairments, even that won't be permanent, right? As human beings, we change over time. And even at the level of a day, I mean, who hasn't, 3 o'clock comes around and you're exhausted and you have to take a nap. There's fluctuations that happen to us as human organisms constantly. And I think it's important for everyone to realize that no matter what their relationship to their body is, disability is a part of what it means to be human. If you live long enough, if you're lucky to live long enough, you will become impaired in various ways. And you probably will have become impaired and experience states of disability just by virtue of random things that happen, even if you aren't, born disabled.
With differences comes misunderstandings, and oftentimes discrimination. As time has progressed, the world has become more accessible to those with disabilities, whether they're born with it or develop them. While in the 1840s or late 19th century, many people were ostracized. Some were put to work in circuses, while others were sent to sanitariums for rehabilitation, or to be taken care of. Even today, most people with disabilities face discrimination and some forms of segregation in schools, albeit unintentional. Most people with disabilities who went to public elementary and middle schools often face bullying and teasing due to the lack of education about disabilities.
I've had a lot of negative interactions in my life, and it has taken a toll. More when I was younger. It took a major toll on my mental health. But being older, I've learned to manage Tourette's and understand what Tourette's syndrome is. So I've learned to manage it a little bit better in my life. But growing up, it was really hard.
I feel like everyone treats me differently at some point. Ironically enough, my peers are one of the few people I know who don't treat me different. In middle school, that was different. In middle school, I got bullied for it, but that was about it.
I went into interviews and they told me that they couldn't hire someone with Tourette syndrome. Some interviews said that if they hired me as a teacher, how would they explain this to their parents and to the students that I would be working with? Growing up, I think that people have accepted my Tourette's a lot better. I think in society, they have learned to accept people who are different a lot better than they used to. But life has changed in America, and I'm really excited that people are given a chance, much like I was able to have a chance to become a teacher that I never had.
As American society culture changes, we can see the gradient influence on the perspective of disabilities within the media and the entertainment industry. Before, films often portrayed characters with disabilities as problematic and dangerous, though it is as we step away from the old portrayals that writers had come to value a character's disability as a natural trait rather than an overbearing conflict that imposes itself onto other characters.
Sometimes the media portrays people with disabilities as the problem child, and it portrays them as people who shouldn't have a chance or don't have a chance in life. And what we have to do is find other stories like Front of the Class and share them with the public to change those stereotypes.
Seen What's Eating Gilbert Grape before, like I heard of DiCaprio's acting in that, and I heard that it was like really good, and like it got a lot of reviews. But when I actually watched it, I saw a lot of things that he would do that I used to do. Like that one opening scene where he's messing with a grasshopper and he like crushes the grasshopper's head inside a mailbox, and he was like laughing about it, but then like the next scene shows him getting consulted by Johnny Depp's character, and it's like, I can't believe I killed it, and that's exactly what I've done, where I've messed with like bugs, and then like I'm playing with them and I kill them because I was like, oh haha, I am God now, but then like it immediately becomes like, oh my God, what have I done? It's like victory followed by regret.
It's important that we do this because there are a lot of people out there who are different, and they're waiting for us, the people who have a voice, to go out there and help change perceptions and challenge those differences that are out there. So we could do it, and I think Front of the Class was one of the movies that are out there doing that work right now.
Outside of film, there are still issues that organizations dealing with disabilities struggle to resolve. In recent news of COVID-19, a new order was issued to doctors that allowed them to choose not to resuscitate those with mental disabilities, to instead save able-bodied people, meaning 10.8% out of 26% of the population of the US who have a cognitive disability are exempt from fair treatment, which contradicts the Hippocratic Oath doctors swear by. The main organization dealing with these issues, as such, is the ADA.
The Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, is now 31 years old, signed by former U.S. President George Bush I. That was a bill that sort of evolved from prior acts, like the 1973 Rehabilitation Act, which the rehabilitation you need to think of as the workplace. It was for the workforce that was coming home from the world wars and various overseas military campaigns, that we now had a bunch of people who were not the same when they came back. They might have had a disability as a result of injury or something else.
The American with Disabilities Act is really important because it changed a time in United States history where it allowed people who were different, who had challenges and disabilities, to actually have a level playing field. It gave us rights in America to attend different places and also be hired for certain jobs that we weren't able to be hired for in the past.
We all have a right to live and breathe, and the happiness. I mean, that's the adage, right? And as people become aware of these things, advocacy becomes ordinance, becomes statute, becomes law, and the ADA expands. The flip side of that is that things don't move very quickly in the legislative world.
And I hope that someday down the road, people think about fighting ableism as much as they think about fighting racism and fighting sexism. If we just focus on the United States for a moment, 1 in every 5 people is disabled in some way, in this broadest sense of including everything from dyslexia to ADHD. There are people who are deaf who do not consider themselves disabled. A lot of times they'll refer to themselves as deaf with a capital D, not a lowercase d. And what does that mean? Their relationship to not hearing is not one of loss. They're not sad about not being able to hear. The relationship to not hearing is that they use a specific language, American Sign Language, British Sign Language, whatever it is, with other people who all speak that same language. Whenever you have a language, you get a rich history and culture surrounding it. And they feel as though their relationship to deafness is one of a positive engagement with the community that they love. there's really wide variance, very, very wide amount of variance between different forms of disability. And that's yet another reason why it requires careful thought and study to kind of appreciate the complexity of disability.